My name is Dennis Doyle. I'm the Planning Director for Ulster County. Tonight's public meeting is about the Ulster County Public Safety Radio Tower that the county has proposed to be located at 35 Quarry Road in Saugerties, New York. A couple of housekeeping items at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom call. You can, on the Zoom screen, you can have, there's a question and answer function and a chat function. If you have any questions during the presentation, we'll attempt to answer them at the end of the presentation. And there's also a slide at the end which will give you an address and a place where you can email any comments that you have up until September 30th of this month. I want to introduce the project team that's with us today. We have Steve Peterson from the Emergency Services Division of the county. Steve, just wave a little bit.
Hey, Dennis.
There
Hello,
you go.
everybody. Thanks for joining.
And then we also have our consulting team from CNS Engineers. We have James Dickens is with us. We also have Eric Kenna, I think that's the correct pronunciation. And I think we have another staff member as well, right? Ed Wright. Is Ed still with us? They're doing the environmental work on the site as well as the project engineering and design plans. And we have from our Public Works Department, we have Ron Suits from our Public Works Department. And then we have our technical consultant, Mr. Robert Leibowitz, who is a principal planner with the County Planning Department. So with that, I'll start in. And Rob, if you could change slides. I'm losing my voice. I apologize. I've been talking all day. I just wanted to run you through where we are in terms of how this process is going to move forward. So this slide gives you a sense of the various components of the approval process that we need to go through. One is the establishment of the need for the project. We'll discuss that briefly tonight. The other is the environmental review that we've currently done, including all the studies that have been completed. And then finally, are some of the design discussions that we're currently having with respect to the tower facilities as it relates to loading, et cetera, site plans. And then last but not least is build. We haven't entered into that phase yet, but we will give you a schedule at the end of this presentation. We anticipate the presentation is going to last between 15 and 20 minutes. So I hope you'll bear with us and then give you an opportunity to make comments and ask questions afterwards. Next slide, Rob. Steve?
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name is Steve Peterson. Like Dennis said, I'm the Director for Emergency Services for the county. Currently, we're operating on a analog conventional radio system that is in need of an upgrade. We have a split between low band and high band frequency spectrum that we communicate on. With fire being on low band and EMS and law enforcement being on high band, that lacks the ability to have interoperability between disciplines and between agencies when we're working on specific incidents. Excuse me. With the low band and the fire service, low band radio equipment is no longer being produced by manufacturers. So we're in a position where we need to make a move, and we've done that with this capital project. We're going to upgrade the radio system within the entire county, get everybody on the same spectrum as far as fire, EMS, and law enforcement, and it'll include the interoperability channels. We'll have tactical channels that we can communicate on, as well as the national interop channels as well. As we move into a simulcast solution, which is what this system is going to be, it provides a greater area of coverage, and we'll show some coverage maps here coming up in the next couple of slides. The Saugerties area has been identified as one of those areas that we have some coverage gaps, and specifically towards the West Saugerties area down into the village of Saugerties. And if Ron, if you could go to the next slide. This shows VHF simulcast portable outbound coverage, which is proposed in the new system, which is a Motorola system. 95% coverage at the end of the project, and we'll work to achieve that. Ron, next slide. And this will be the mobile coverage for outbound. Okay, next slide. So as you can see, the gray areas right now shows the coverage mainly in the West Saugerties area, and you can see the white indicates the gaps that we intend to fill with this site. We've identified this site as a good location for us. It takes care of filling in those gaps, and it's county-owned property as well, so that's a bonus. So if you go to the next slide there, Ron. Okay, so now you can see where the coverage. Oh, okay, yep. So that's the gaps, and then that's the fill in with having that site on the air, and that gets down into that'll go down into the Mount Marion area and into the Glasgow area, and we'll continue to, as we build out, we'll continue to monitor that area to see if additional coverage is needed. And we'll address those gaps as the system progresses. Okay. So this is the proposed site. Dennis, did you want to cover this, or do you want me to?
No,
keep
go ahead,
going?
Steve. Go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. This is the proposed site. If you're from the Saugerties area, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It used to be the old tire dump, and up on Quarry Road, and you can see off in the back corner on the north, or on the top of your screen, I should say, top right-hand side of your screen, you'll see where the proposed site is going to be, and we'll talk more about that with the consultants in a few minutes in the next few slides. Okay.
So we wanted to give you a sense of what our current status of our current studies are, and where we are on our environmental work that needs to be done. This project is subject to both the State Environmental Quality Review Act, otherwise known as SEQR. It is an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. In addition, it's also subject, because it's a new tower site, it's also subject to FAA regulations, and that brings in NEPA and the National Environmental Policy Act as well. So the county has begun the coordination process with respect to NEPA through our consultants. And as it relates to SEQR, the county has declared itself lead agency and issued a resolution of an intent to do that. We contacted all the approving agencies to see whether there's anyone else that wanted to be lead agency. After the 30 days had lapsed, the county assumed lead agency status. So the county will move through the SEQR process in conjunction with going through the NEPA process. In addition, we've worked collaboratively with the local planning board, appearing at two of their meetings to discuss the project, first in a concept phase, and then more recently with respect to where we are in the current studies. The current studies that we've done, and we'll show you those studies. I would say at the end of this slideshow there is a posting of the website. Those studies are available on the website, and you can download them from there. We have done a viewshed analysis. That viewshed analysis was both done with looking at a viewshed as it relates to the topography, as well as various photo locations. We also have done photo simulations of the locations where the tower was visible from those locations. We've also completed some historic and archaeological reports. And on the design side, and we'll show you these things, we've completed a preliminary site plan, a geotechnical analysis, and begun the work on the structural needs for the tower itself. Next slide, Rob. So Eric.
Yes, thanks, Dennis. I'm Eric and I'm with CNS Engineers. The first thing we did for the viewshed analysis is we have the ability with GIS to put together a map that gives us a rough idea of where the tower will be visible from based on topography and the tower height. So we did that first, we gave that to the county, and then Dennis circulated this, provided the local municipality, some input on places that we might, areas of concern or special interest or viewpoints that people might want to see it from. Between that information from Dennis, we took some spots off the viewshed map where it looked like it would be visible, and we also drive the rest of the areas and check it just to make sure the viewshed map's being accurate, because it is only based on topography. So it can account for, trees and buildings and things like that. So the map that we have here on the screen now are the 14 or so points that we took photos from after driving the area to see where we could see the balloons from. And if you want to go to the next slide. So just, I think Dennis did this just for some context and some of the closest properties, how far they are from the tower. Those are some of the closest residents around the site. Next slide. So from all those 14 points, we had 2 viewpoints where we could see the balloons. And in this photo, you can see the 2 balloons. We've got them circled there. The way we run these tests are we run two balloons at 2 different heights. The first balloon, the top balloon, is usually about 15 feet above, 10 to 15 feet above our tower height. So we set the bottom balloon at the 180-foot mark. The next balloon up is 10 to 15 feet above that. We do that for 2 reasons. One, sometimes we can see the top balloon, but not the bottom balloon. So then we know, even though we don't think it's visible, we're looking in the right direction. So we spot what we call the marker balloon. We can't see the lower balloon. We've got the right location identified, but we can't see the tower. The second reason is in this instance that you see here, we know the distance between the 2 balloons, and we use that as a gauge when we then do the photo simulation to make sure we get the tower into the correct height, correct size. So the next slide here, I believe, will be the sim. So this is a simulation. You'll see we bring the tower up. It's a 180-foot lattice tower, are represented above to the lower balloon. The antennas that we show on there are the actual expected or anticipated antennas that the county has provided us at the correct heights. So we are doing, that's pretty close to, as close as we can get it at this point to what the tower will actually look like. The next slide is the second location where the tower was visible from. And you'll see the 2 balloons again. The next slide will be the simulation, and there's the tower again, simulated to that height. So this is, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good representation of what you'll see, how much of the tower you'll see, the scale and width of the tower based on the separation of those balloons. And we can get it simmed in there pretty accurately based on that. Next slide. So I think, Dennis, you just put some of these in here, right? These are some of the viewpoints that we took that it wasn't visible from, so you can see, some of the types of screening. So in this instance, it would be, the trees are too close and cutting off the angle and you won't see it. And then, Dennis, you put these in. So these, if I'm understanding this correctly, are from some of...
Yeah, I'll take this, Eric, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, what we tried to do is taking a look at the closest residents and using Google Earth to give you a sense of what the topography is between the residents and the tower site. And you can see in this instance, we're looking west from the closest residents towards the tower site. It's actually behind that rise. So that rise will block a substantial portion of the tower from that closest residence to the east of the site. Next slide, Rob. This is actually from the residence itself, looking back towards the tower site. And this is, again, this is looking east from the residence that's on the west of the tower site. And again, you can see the rise here between the tower site and the residence that gives you an indication that that this residence is going to be partially blocked as well from the rise to the west of the to the east of the site, looking towards the tower. We just tried to give you a sense of what that was. I wanted, if I can, Rob, if I wanted to go back and take a quick look at, Rob, if you could go back to the simulations, one more, keep going back, one more. When you look at these sites, and one more, Rob, there you go. One more back, there you go, that one there, that's fine. When you look at these sites in terms of the visibility from the roadway, this site here, which is on Route 32, looking north into the site, the tower here is about 2,600 feet away from where this photo was taken. The traffic on Route 32 will have a very short window to view this tower site because it's at right angles to the road. The most impacted view from this public spot is going to be essentially on the other side of Harry Wells Road, where it intersects Route 32, coming out of Harry Wells Road to the north. That will have a longer term view of the tower site as compared to the traffic moving by on Route 32. And one of the ways that you measure impacts, visual impacts, is not only the character of the view, but also the length of time that the inconsistent character would be viewed. In this instance, where most of the traffic takes place, that inconsistency of the tower is going to be a very short view shed. view time because of the way that the angle runs. Rob, next slide. Next one. Similar here, this slide is taken at the entrance to the site. It's the access road. Actually is the access to 35. It's Quarry Road. And looking at this site again, the road that's a public road that passes this site. The view said here will be a very short, limited duration because of the angle that's here as well. And Quarry Road is actually no longer a public road as we move up into the site. It's actually a private road. So there's not a lot of traffic or a lot of exposure to individuals that will travel up Quarry Road. All right, Rob, now we can go back, keep moving ahead. Okay, Eric?
Yeah, so Dennis mentioned earlier that with the state seeker process, we also have, because of the FCC licenses associated with the system, we have to undergo the NEPA review process, which is the National Environmental Policy Act as well. Part of that is the State Historic Preservation review. There's a very formal process with a formal form. It's FCC Form 620, it's called, for a submission to the State Historic Preservation Office. We're required to hire what they refer to as a certified principal investigator, which is basically an organization that is certified by the state to do these types of reviews. And they review two things. They review direct impacts to the actual site, which is over here on the left. You see the archaeological sites and standing historic sites on the property. And then they also review a certain area based on tower height for visual and aesthetic impacts, basically similar to what we've done. They look within a radius and see if there's any historic properties which might be eligible to be listed on the register, and then examine the impacts from the tower to those viewpoints if they found any. The report that they produced and submitted to us did not have any direct impacts or visual aesthetic impacts. We submitted this report to the State Historic Preservation Office, and at this point they have concurred with SUNY Binghamton, who is the investigator we use. They concurred with their findings. And so at this point, we have a finding of no impact to cultural or historic resources from the State Historic Preservation Office.
Next slide, Rob.
All right, this is Jim, I believe.
Yep. Hey, this is Jim Dickens. I'm with CNS Engineers. What we had done starting in the design process is we had had our surveyor go out, and our surveyor basically did a boundary survey of the entire piece of property that the county owns. And then we also had him provide us a topographic information for the site. And then if you look at in the lower right-hand corner, we actually identified where the site itself is going to be located. There is a couple of older foundations that shows up on there, one north of it, one to the so this is kind of the starting of the design process, where we identified the site location, and then what we did was we had our geotechnical folks go out, and they did a geotechnical boring at the center of the tower location, and then from there we did a geotechnical report and provided that information and everything to the county, which is going to help through the design process. Next slide. This slide represents a blow up of the compound area, and basically it's under an acre of disturbance. And what we did, because this was an old quarry and the bedrock was fairly close to the surface, what we did was we kind of are putting a fill material in and kind of raising up site to site a little bit so that we're not getting into the rock excavation and disturbing any of the rock in the bedrock there. Next slide. Now this slide, this is a blow up of the compound area, and it kind of what it shows you. It'll show you. It shows you kind of the location of where we're placing the 180-foot tower. It's a three-legged self-support tower. Along with the tower, you're going to have a equipment shelter, which is to the right of the tower. From there, the cables for the antennas and whatnot go along an ice bridge that connects basically the shelter to the tower. And then below the shelter, we'll have a generator. It's a backup generator for the facility. We got prime power that's going to come to the site, but this generator is used as a backup, and it's a propane. So we have identified and showed a propane tank on the site, and it's about a 50 by 60 some odd fenced-in compound. Next slide. This slide kind of gives us an idea of what real rough order of magnitude. And Ed, you want to go through and talk about the schedule a little bit?
Yep, sorry, I have to unmute. I see Dennis has put a box around where we are at this point. We're still finishing up the environmental permitting, and we're in the design phase. Once the approvals are all completed and the design is finished, the county will put it out to bid. And the bidding will take some time because once they select the contractor, he will have to purchase the tower, the shelter, the generator, etc. And those devices, those items have a fairly long lead time. Some of them as long as 14 weeks to get those things in. And then construction can start. And Dennis, did you want to talk to when you? I think you wanted to talk to this a little bit yourself, Dennis.
Well, I think the main thing is that given where we are, and Steve hit on this a little bit too, in terms of the current radio system and the size of the gap in Saugerties, there is a sort of a pressure for us to sort of make that correction as soon as possible. And so we're looking to try to basically make this thing operational by no later than the end of 2021, and hopefully by fall of 2021, that we would be operational. So we have some, it's a fairly aggressive time frame, particularly with respect to the lead time and the bidding time and the amount of process that it takes to get through that, those issues at a county level, but it's doable. Next slide, Rob. So I just wanted to say thank you for those that have joined. We're going to have an opportunity for comment and questions. And I'm going to ask Rob to put the last slide up. So this gives you a sense that the comment period is open till the 30th of September. We also will take comments by either email to myself or Steve Peterson. Both those email addresses are up there. In addition, the county will take comments by mail to the county planning department. That address is up there. I would urge anyone with questions or needs additional information for the project to reach out to us. We'll be more than willing to have that conversation. In addition, there is a project webpage that's on the county planning department's website. And that address, that URL is given to you, and most of the documents that we talked about are on that project webpage. We will put this presentation on that project webpage, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. And then you should be aware of the fact that we will also be able to post this meeting and presentation to YouTube, and we'll have a recording of this presentation as well available for anyone that requests it. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, comments, and I'd ask you to use the Q&A function that's available to you. Do we have any, Rob? I don't see any.
No questions on that. I mean, people can also, alternatively, if they like, they can raise their hands too, and then I can recognize them as well. I don't have anybody doing that either. Oh. Okay. We just have a statement from Joe Snarger saying the tower is vital to public safety.
We'll give everybody a couple of more minutes to see whether or not anybody has a question. Again, I would say that if you think of something after this meeting that comes up, please reach out to myself or to Mr. Peterson. We'll be happy to answer those questions. Perhaps If you have any specific questions that relate to personal residence or something of that, again, please reach out to us as soon as possible. I would also ask you to submit comments in writing to us. That way we have it goes into the project record. We will be back in front of the local planning board requesting a removal, an approval of the project through something called a balance of public interest test, which is not a standard site plan approval. It literally basically goes through a 8-point test that basically deals with the benefit of the project to the public versus the ability of the county and the community to essentially influence how the project is designed, and also the ability of the community to comment on the project. So we're desperately seeking, I shouldn't say desperately, we certainly want your comments and we'll consider them. And we're aware, and we'll make sure that the local planning board is aware of any comments that we receive.
I just stopped the share so you can wrap it up if you like. Oh, we may have another question. This is from Ken Goldberg. When do you plan to come in front of the local planning board?
Okay, I think I can address that. We have been in front of the local planning board twice already. Once to have a discussion with respect to the project as it relates to what we're proposing and how we planned on going about it. We've also coordinated with the local planning board with respect to the lead agency status in terms of circulating materials to the local planning board for lead agency. And we were in front of the local planning board last Tuesday, or I'm sorry, this Tuesday past, to essentially give them a presentation and currently of where we are. And we'll be back in front of the local planning board, I think, when we finally get a little bit further along and the comment period ends. We're very interested in any of the public comments that occur. We'll be back in front of the local planning board, asking them to consider the balance of public interest test, I hope by next month.
He said thank you.
Any other questions? Going once? Okay. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank my consulting team for helping us out, get through the slides and explaining that. And Steve, also for you, thank you very much for giving me a better understanding of the system and how it works and why it's important. And look forward to essentially moving this project forward and being able to essentially begin the bidding process and complete the environmental work in the near future. Again, I remind anybody, if they have comments or questions, please reach out as soon as possible. We will be taking comments until the 30th of September.
Dennis, thank you very much, and thank you to CNS as well.
All right, thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.